Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Sharon Bown, and joining us this evening from the Royal Australian Air Force is Wing Commander David Scher. We warmly welcome the family of Private Matthew James Ryan, who are watching the live stream of this evening's ceremony. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by Wing Commander Michael Garside, Australian War Memorial Air Force Fellow, who will lay a wreath on behalf of the family of Private Matthew James Ryan. Wreaths will also be laid by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Those requiring a seat, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Matthew James Ryan. Matthew Ryan was born in Brisbane in 1893 to William and Jane Ryan. In his youth, he worked as a farmer near the town of Gatton, west of Brisbane. He also spent 4 years as a volunteer in the local Australian Light Horse Regiment. In September 1915, Ryan enlisted into the Australian Imperial Force. After several months training at Enoggera Barracks in Brisbane, at the end of December 1915, he sailed on the transport ship Otonus, arriving in Egypt in early 1916. By this time, the British and Australian forces had withdrawn from Gallipoli, and the AIF was training and being reorganised. In mid-March, the units began sailing to France before travelling by train to the north of the country. Ryan arrived at Armentières in northern France in mid-April and joined the 25th Australian Infantry Battalion. He and the men of the battalion spent the spring months training in the region near the Belgian border. Due to the comparative peacefulness of the area, it was known as the nursery sector. The British commanders thought that it was a good place for the Australians to learn the methods of trench warfare without suffering too many casualties. In June, Ryan was admitted to hospital suffering from muscular pains known as myalgia. He spent a week recovering behind the lines before returning to duty. His unit had been stationed near the Belgian border, but after his return it was ordered south. With the British planning a major summer offensive, the units of the AIF moved to the much more active sector of the front along the Somme River. In mid-July 1916, the 1st Australian Division successfully captured the high ground behind the French town of Pozières. This capture was the most successful of the assault, so it attracted the heaviest German artillery barrages and counterattacks. Ryan's unit was part of the 2nd Division, which relieved the 1st Division on the 28th of July. The men of the 25th Battalion came under constant artillery fire. That night, they launched an attack against the German position in order to consolidate the captured ground. The shelling was so intense that many men were killed and buried under the churning earth. Ryan was listed as missing in action on the 29th of July, 1916. It is not clear how he died. His remains were never found. The AIF did not officially declare him dead until August 1917. He was 23 years old. Ryan's name is inscribed in the Australian National Memorial at Villers-Bretonneux. The memorial lists the names of over 10,000 Australians who were killed in France and have no known grave. In Australia, Ryan was survived by his father, his sisters Violet and Catherine, and his brother Robert. His mother had passed away before the family was informed of Matthew's death. The family was told by returned soldiers that Matthew had been killed at Pozières, only receiving official confirmation more than a year later. Private Matthew James Ryan is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right. Among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private James Matthew Ryan, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.